My name is Jacqueline, and I'd like to tell you about how I would describe myself and my identities at the beginning of this course. I would say I'm a pretty normal person, and I would say that I'm a teacher, a student, a wife, a mother, and a sister. And now, after taking this course, my idea of what I would consider to be normal has shifted, and I'm now rethinking how society presents the narrative normatives of normal. After taking the class, this is now how I would say I identify. Heterosexual, middle class, cis woman, white, treaty person, able-bodied. So first, I am white, and that would be what everybody would notice when they looked at me, is my skin color. When we examined the idea of white privilege in class in the reading of the article of Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack by Peggy McIntosh, I had to practice humility. I grew up being taught all people are equal, and this became my common sense understanding of the world and the people around me. After gaining some knowledge and information about white privilege, I now realize I was willfully ignorant. Because it's true, I'm white, and just because I'm white, I'm privileged. My privilege is very complicated, and I have benefited from it in many different ways throughout my life. Discussing white privilege, in class, I encountered the feelings of discomfort. White fragility was another uncomfortable learning experience. It's true, as a white person, I struggle to talk about being racist. And I'm trying to understand and enjoy being out of my comfort zone. Racism today does exist in every institution across society. I will not intentionally be willfully ignorant in this area anymore. One assignment given was to look around our daily lives for whiteness. As I sat in my desk, the same desk I'd sat in since September, I looked around the classroom, and what did I see? We are all treaty people on a bulletin board I had created. I had been hanging Cree words, a weekly Cree word, right underneath those words. I didn't even know the meaning. Why hadn't I asked anybody or inquired about we are all treaty people? Honestly, if you had asked me if I was a treaty person, I would have said no, I am not Aboriginal. Growing up in Vancouver, I learned very little about treaties and Indigenous people, and in a small group, I practiced humility during this course when I admitted this to my fellow group members. I had a white history teacher for a father. I remember having an assignment when I was in grade 5 about picking an individual who had impacted Canada's history. My dad telling me, well, you have to pick the best Prime Minister of Canada, Sir John A. Macdonald. I wrote a whole speech about him and can clearly remember sharing special moments with my dad as we collaborated on the project. Then to read the article about the man in Regina vandalizing the statue of Sir John A. Macdonald by painting his hands red to symbolize blood on his hands. Sir John A. Macdonald was responsible for doing such horrible things to the Indigenous people. He created residential schools and was trying to take the Indian out of the child. This was a big moment in my learning process. The idea of systematic and structural oppression play a role in racism, and the stories we're told as children are told to believe are true without question. Now I know, question everything. I have had many times during this class, when I have longed to have a courageous conversation with my dad about so much of the course context. Unfortunately, my dad died 4 years ago, so I can only imagine what he would say to me. This is a good example of how being taught about white people's history in school has left me misinformed. Another learning bump I experienced along the way was the gender binary myth, the idea that people must fit into only two categories. As a mother to both a male and a female, I find the whole idea on how society and the media has socially constructed the characteristics of males to be hypermasculine and to toughen up, and females to be domestic, and sex symbols very disturbing. The norm right now is to have a gender reveal party to find out the sex of the baby. And now that just seems weird, and I have mixed feelings towards it. I know I have personally encouraged my daughter to sit like a lady and act in a particular way that I think females should act. I have also encouraged my son to toughen up. I will now rethink these things before I say them. My metaphor: I am like a butter tart.